The High Court in Pretoria has granted the Zondo Commission's application for a 3-month extension. The Commission will now continue until the 31st of December to finalise its report for President Cyril Ramaphosa. Zondo says one of the reasons that contributed to the delay is because someone in his team fell ill and was booked off for a month. The Commission started its work in August of 2018 and has heard testimonies from over 300 witnesses, including the President Cyril Ramaphosa. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice has withdrawn its application to challenge Zondo's extension. To bring you an update on the extension of the state capture inquiry, we are joined by CASAC's Mr. Lawson Naidoo. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Naidoo. Talk to us about your thoughts about this extension. It is indeed the 5th one.
It is indeed the 5th one, and it's the 3rd extension that has been granted this year in 2021. There was an extension granted in March to extend the lifespan to the end of June, another one in June to extend the lifespan to the end of September, and this the 3rd one this year. And whilst it's inevitable that the court was placed in a position where it had little choice but to agree to the extension, because failure to do so would mean that the Commission would come to an abrupt end without a report being produced. But it is nevertheless concerning that the Commission has operated in a manner that has not allowed it to meet its own deadlines of finalizing the report. And our concern is that there's no guarantee that this is going to actually be the final extension and that the report will indeed be delivered by the end of December.
Some might argue, Mr. Lawson, that perhaps one needs to err on the side of caution. That is it not better to have a comprehensive, complete report, even if it does require an extension, instead of having something that is rushed, even after so many years of the inquiry and the Commission having taken place?
Tommy, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. We all want a comprehensive and detailed report from the Deputy Chief Justice in this regard. The Commission has run for 3.5 years, over 300 witnesses, as you've said, and we certainly want a proper report that is going to do justice to the work that the Commission has undertaken. But on the other hand, this can't be a never-ending process. There's got to come a time where the Deputy Chief Justice commits to a deadline and actually meets that deadline and submits his report. And I think there's a level of impatience and frustration that's setting in with regards to these continuous requests for extensions and postponements that are being requested, often at the very last minute, which also places an unfair burden on the courts in having to make decisions about extension applications without necessarily having before the courts all of the necessary information to enable them to take that decision. So they really have to rely on what the Commission says to them in the absence of important information that we believe that the Commission should be placing before the courts.
What would be the further implications of extensions, apart from the inconvenience of not having the information ready, the inconvenience of not being able to get into the findings of over the past few years, as well as the recommendations that would be made? What are the further implications of these extensions?
Well, one of the issues is clearly the issue of the funding constraints that the Commission face and the country at large faces. And, we know that earlier this year, the former Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, made it clear that Treasury would not be providing any additional funding for the Commission. And so subsequent to that, funding has come out of the budget of the Department of Justice and Correctional Services. They've had to reprioritize within their own budgets to accommodate the Commission. And I think this is evidenced by the fact that the Minister initially sought to intervene in this application and then later withdrew. But I think it does highlight the fact that the discussions around the funding that would be necessary for this extension have not been agreed between the Commission and the Department of Justice, and that's certainly a matter of concern. The statement that the Department issued yesterday says that they will they'll seek to find each other on this and make an arrangement that enables the Commission to complete its work. But that should have been done well in advance of this application to the court being made.
We saw Justice Minister Ronald Lamola wanting to take this to the High Court, but he's made a turnaround on this. What could have informed his decisions?
Well, we don't know. We'd only be speculating, Tommy, but one assumes that there were some last-minute discussions between the Commission staff and the Department of Justice, and agreed to put in place some engagements that would seek to overcome these, primarily funding challenges that the department will face, and that the Commission has got to agree that if they're in the final phases of writing up the report, and many of the staff of the Commission would no longer be required, the investigating staff and so on, and that therefore the costs associated with the Commission can be significantly reduced in this final phase of its work, as the small team of people that are doing the preparation of the report continue with their work. So one assumes that those are some of the discussions that have been and will be taking place in order to contain that budget. But at a broader level, one remains concerned that the Deputy Chief Justice in his application to the court has made it open the door that there may be some cross-examination that may still be permitted. So we may still have some hearings. He says a day or two of hearings for some limited cross-examination. And that opens the door to further delays potentially in this process, and therefore this is not really just 3 months to write up the report, but they're still obviously dealing with some loose threads that still exist from the investigative phase of the inquiry.
From your understanding, now that this hearing has been put out there, that there could potentially be further cross-examinations, would those cross-examinations have to happen within this 3-month period, or are you anticipating this beyond the 31st of December?
Well, we certainly don't want to be looking beyond the 31st of December at this point in time. And the Deputy Chief Justice has said it will happen, within this period. That it should only take a day or two, according to his affidavit. But it must happen before the end of December. And, one would have thought that if that was going to happen, that it would have happened by now. And that, any issues around further witnesses or cross-examination would have certainly been dealt with, before now. And it's really surprising that we might still face further, testimony being given to the Commission, which would then have to be incorporated into their reports. So that's why I say, the risk exists that this may not be the final extension that we hear about.
What is your analysis of the cost of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, a good 1 billion rand, and juxtapose that to perhaps the leads and the recovery of funds that have arisen due to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry? When you weigh the cost of what it has cost to have the commission put in place, as well as the amounts that have so far been recouped from the work of the SIU, is it worth it?
Well, look, let's start by acknowledging that it is a significant amount of money that has been spent on the Commission, in the region of 1 billion rands already. But I don't think we must just look at that figure in isolation. And that, it's been a necessary expense. This has been a very necessary process of unearthing the depth of state capture and all those implicated parties. And we will reap the rewards of this process in the years to come, hopefully, on the basis of a comprehensive report and the fact that there will be follow-up actions by the law enforcement agencies that ultimately holds people to account for what happened. But also, one expects that the recommendations will also point to mechanisms and interventions that may be necessary to strengthen institutions of governance so that opportunities for corruption, fraud and state capture don't exist in the future. So yes, it's a large sum of money, but I think at the end of the day, we may look back on this and say that it was money well spent.
You talk of a comprehensive report, and I wonder, is it possible to have a comprehensive report on state capture in the country without having had a witness such as the former President Jacob Zuma answering to many of the questions that he would have answered had he gone to the Commission and completed the time that would have been required of him there?
No, indeed. I mean, the Commission will certainly have benefited from the testimony of former President Zuma, as it would have benefited from the testimony of the Gupta brothers themselves. It has not had the benefit of that, and on the basis of the evidence that has been presented to the Commission, the Deputy Chief Justice will have to make findings and say that the evidence before him is persuasive, even in face of the fact that key witnesses did not give evidence. They've eschewed the opportunity to rebut that evidence. So to the extent that evidence is credible, it must stand. And the investigating agencies and the National Prosecuting Authority will have to take those matters forward in their investigations with a view to criminal prosecutions. So I don't think the failure to give evidence is going to let anyone off the hook necessarily.
Mr. Lawson Naidoo, thank you once again for your time. That was the Executive Secretary for the Council of the Advancement of the South African Constitution, Mr. Lawson Naidoo.